Freedom Master John Curtis here, and have I got a game for you today? We're going to look at Title Tuesday. We're on the held on the 23rd of this month, and it's Grandmaster Pavel Anisimov, 2,815 versus Grandmaster Sinan Sugirov, 2,917. Both of them Russians. Title Tuesday is held every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time or 1900 hours Central Europe time, and it's a tournament on chess.com for titled players. It's held weekly, and it's fiercely competitive with the Grandmasters and Super Grandmasters. Pavel, he was born in Leningrad. He actually won the Under-14 Championship of Russia in 2000. He became a international master in 2005 and a grandmaster in 2019. His opponent, also from Russia, Sinan Sugirov, he won the Russian Under-20 Championship, and at 2010 Chess Olympiad he actually beat Magnus Carlsen. So these are really fantastic players. And if I were you, I'd keep my eyes on this young Sinan Sugirov. He might not have won Title Tuesday, but he's certainly a player to watch. He did lose this game, and it was a fiercely fought event, but he never really quite got his footing in the game. But we're going to show it anyway, as a tribute to Grandmaster Pavel Anisimov, who did a fantastic result in losing the first game on time and then winning 10 games in a row. And so without further ado, we're going to get straight into the game. And here we go. Right. And Sinan Sugirov is black, and our hero today, the winner of Title Tuesday, is Grandmaster Pavel Anisimov with the white pieces. So we have a Sicilian defence, an open Sveshnikov, knight to e2. That's another way to just develop the knight to d4. Here it comes here, pawn takes and knight recaptures. So it's all book theory with these super grandmasters, knight to b5, d6, and knight to c3, and white's aiming to control the d5 square. Obviously the threat now is knight to d5 and knight to c7 check. Right, so that's the threat, and straight away black chases the knight away, the advanced knight, and it returns to a3. All theory, you can see the little book there. b5. The white goes to its designated square, knight to d5, where white hopes to gain some power on the white squares. And black's fighting for the black squares. And that's a star move, it's the best move. And bishop to g5. Pins the knight against the queen. Bishop e7, book move, preparing to castle, and threatening knight takes knight would win a piece. White has none of that. Exchanges the bishop for the knight, and is happy to do so because white's playing on the white squares, and he wants all black pieces on black squares. So there we can see that. The bishop looks like a pawn, as you can see, the pawn's here. The pawn looks like a pawn chain, right? Okay, so the black bishop's not the greatest bishop in the world, but black will do his best to activate that bishop. c3. Now the whole idea of this c3 is to stop the knight coming into d4 and at the same time prepare a knight maneuver from here to here to support the knight there. Right, so that's the whole idea, to redirect the knight back to c2 to e3 and to put pressure on that and to hold that d5 square as an outpost for operations for white. Okay, black castles. h4, interesting move, and a great move for blitz chess. As we can see on the clocks here, Pavel and Anisimov, he's got to the white pieces. And the whole idea of playing that move is if the bishop takes, if the bishop took the pawn, right, if the bishop took the pawn, then the queen would come over here and backed up by the rook here, they would threaten checkmate along the hidden checkmate down to h7. So let's see what transpires. Bishop e6, a good developing move, but the engine's saying that the correct move was knight to e7 and trying to boot that knight out of d5. The engine says it's super critical to get rid of that knight on d5. White plays knight to c2 and continues his plan to go to e3 and to bolster the d5 square. Bishop takes, queen takes, knight e7. And black's plan is very simple. It's to play d5, a freeing move. And it looks quite logical in the position. Queen to d3 and now d5. Black's plan to play this freeing move. The engine's saying queen to c7 was better. Rook to d1, question mark. Castles was better, apparently. Castling would have put the king in a slightly safer position, according to the engine. Queen to a5. Now, these super grandmasters don't muck around. They know that they've got it. It's lightning chess. He's only got 1 minute and 54 seconds on his clock. And he knows he has to create some sort of a counterattack. So if White was wayward and thinking he's just going to win a pawn with pawn takes pawn, the rook would go to d8. So if pawn took the pawn, the rook would go to d8, and one of the rooks anyway. And also, black looks at possibility of taking the a pawn with the idea of worrying white to take the b pawn, and would be happy for the e takes d to free this pawn to come forwards. Right, so if pawn takes pawn, if black wants to jettison the pawn to activate his black squared bishop. Anyway, white knows all these things. Doesn't muck around. He takes the pawn anyway. He says, all right, do your best. And white thinks for a while. And he says, well, I don't know what to do here. And he just plays e5. He says, well, I'll start with jettisoning the pawn. But it was a bit too early, boys and girls. Okay, it's an interesting move, but it's an inaccuracy as far as the engine's concerned. Queen to a2, my move, is the best move. Simple and strong. Right, let's see now what happens. Queen takes a pawn. White's not worried about the pressure on the king side, because on the queen side, because he thinks he's got enough play to get some counterplay on the king side. So, rook to e8. Excellent move, a star move. And the threat is simple, to play knight to g6. Black's simply threatening knight to g6 and the queen's gone. Trapped against the king. Okay? So let's have a look and see what happens. Knight to e3. White chooses to block the rook from the king and give the white queen some defence. And maybe perhaps if queen takes a pawn, white could even look at playing queen to b1 if necessary. Mind you, if necessary, because white has always got this huge d pawn, and once the d pawn starts moving forwards, black could be in disarray. Black plays rook on the a file to d8. And the engine says that's an excellent move, but queen takes pawn again is correct. You can't just throw your queen over the side of the board, then do nothing with it and just leave it over the side of the board while everything else is going on. So this is just fundamentally wrong to just leave the queen there and not take the pawn. That's what the engine's saying. Bishop d3 now, threatening queen takes pawn check. And now g6. Okay, now you can see that, knight takes pawn was a possibility according to the engine. Oh, well. I wouldn't have liked that one, but that's what they're saying. What the engine's saying is that black can escape with the king, and there's plenty of safe squares to run away to on the queen side. That's the engine's assessment. Queen to f3. In accuracy, the castles was best. Point being, if castles was best. Right, knight takes d4, 5, and now castles, star move, best move. And now you can, looking at the position, you can see black wants to play knight takes, and he does. He takes that. Apparently, it's the best move, and pawn takes. Now, this is where we have problems in the position for black, and that is behind the scenes. Is this weakness on f7? This pawn. This pawn here is a weakness, and the queen and the castle all line up on that pawn, and that could be the critical part of the game, and it's obvious, but it's not hard to. Rook to e6 was played. It's apparently the very best move, but white comes up with a bolter. Okay, so Grandmaster Pavel Anasimov, or Paul from SPB, as he was called, as his chess.com nickname says, he plays h5. And now the threat is, I suppose, pawn takes pawn or h6, depending on what it was. But it's certainly, they know that, he knows that Grandmaster Sanan Sajirov has only got 25 seconds on his clock, whereas Pavel Anasimov, Super Grandmaster Paul, he's got a whopping 1 minute and 34 seconds on his clock. He's managed his time better through the complications. Now, h takes g was played. Right, that's just to distract black from the next move. The next move's threat. Pawn takes. And now, bishop c4. Bang! All along, the engine was saying that black should have taken that a pawn, but not. Now that he takes it, he's just left himself open for this double attack. The bishop's attacking the queen, and the rook is attacking the rook. Okay, the problem is that after rook, the bishop's protecting this, but it's overloaded. The bishop on f6 is protecting the rook, but it's overloaded, as you will see. Okay, here it comes. Queen takes bishop. Rook takes rook, check. Now, in this position, the only move is king to g7, but it's lost anyway at this stage. But after bishop takes rook, check, and now resigns. The game is over because black knows he's got to go there. Another check, king here, and checkmate follows. And as we now know, Pavel went on to win all of his 10 games in a row after losing his first game on time. And he actually finished a half a point in the tournament ahead of the great Nakamura, who lost a very hard-fought, heavy game against one of the other Super Grandmasters. Okay, well, so I hope you enjoyed this game, and please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. And so it's FIDE Master John Curtis signing off for now, and I'll catch you next time on FM John Curtis Chess.